Perfect Business Show with Danny Snelling. Sponsored by MT Comms.
Okay, so Cassandra Andrews, lovely to have you in here today, and tell our listeners, please, what you do and what you get up to, and what you do for people.
Great to be here. I am an author and therapeutic coach for high achieving men over 40. So entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs, high net worth men whose life probably looks great on the outside, but doesn't necessarily feel it on the inside.
And I have to say, because we'd only met yesterday, wasn't it? So I didn't really know much about what you do, so that's really fascinating. And of course, I'm sure I have lots of people fitting that category, or know lots of people fitting that category, myself included. So very, very interesting. And you bought me a book.
I have.
I'm going to actually... I should have really propped that up here, shouldn't we? But no, I really look forward to reading that. Thank you.
And I look forward to your feedback.
We'll talk more about that later on, perhaps. So, have you always written books, or is that a new thing, or is this how has that crept in?
Oh gosh, no. I have always wanted to write a book, however, got in my own way for many years and wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to write about. I always knew it was going to be a non-fiction book, and so I realised, 2 years ago, so I host, just to give you some background,
I've kind of skipped the whole thing here, haven't I? We normally start from the beginning and go through everything, but just briefly on the how the book originated.
Yeah.
So you host.
So I host intimate dinners for men, and usually I get 9 men round a table. Probably some of your listeners may have been to one of the dinners, and basically they're set up to be everything that you always wanted to talk about but never felt you could.
Wow.
So Chatham House rules, totally confidential, and it's amazing when men feel that they have the space, how they want to share what's going on for them. And then when they realise that other men are going through the same issues, maybe dressed up in a slightly different way, but that's ultimately the same thing, that they realise, I'm not alone, it's not just me. And that's kind of part of the purpose for the dinners. And the very first dinner that I hosted a couple of years ago, I was listening to the guys at the table who were just being so open that I was just in awe, really. And I realised that they all needed to read the book. And I'd started writing it about 6 months before, and I just kept stopping. Something was getting in the way. But I knew that almost like I was being selfish by not writing the book. And so I went home and I used some of the techniques that I use with my clients on myself. And one of those things is journaling, which I hope we get to talk about a bit later on, because I'm a big advocate of journaling and getting the shit out your head. And so I just journaled what's getting in the way of me writing this book, and all this stuff came out around, only getting a C in English and feeling that I would be judged and not being good enough and not being a neuroscientist and all of this rubbish. And then I realised, well, of course I'm not going to write a book because I don't feel emotionally safe to write the book. And it was at that point that I went back to my coach, cleared some beliefs that I have, and the next week I started writing and didn't stop.
Wow.
And so the whole process probably took about 18 months. And I launched in May of this year, and it's just been phenomenal ever since. And this, some of your listeners might resonate with this. I expected and was preparing for judgment of, your book's a load of rubbish. What I wasn't expecting or preparing myself for was people saying, wow, that's really changed my life. And I've had so many positive comments. I just wasn't expecting it and almost didn't know what to do with it, which is a really interesting insight for me personally.
Any criticism though?
Not yet, to my
There you
face.
go.
I don't know if it's there. No one said it to me. However, one of the things that I was thinking in preparation was kill them with kindness. And I do think that certainly around social media, I have some clients that are in the media eye, and I just think maybe because of what I do, but most of us are just walking around like a 5-year-old. And if we can remember that, then suddenly we just have a different sort of compassion for people. And I just really hope that the book is helpful for men and women.
Yeah. So to go back to more the coaching side of it and the way you help and the people you help, how did you get into that niche or that market in that way? You know, was it a point where you just started focusing on that, or was it where you started, or in terms of the 40-year-old successful person?
Yeah, it's quite a niche.
It is, yeah.
And most people are fascinated by it. So my background is predominantly HR, and I also had a recruitment business for a period of time. And so I've always worked with people. And about 8 years ago, I set up a business around employee motivation and work with organisations. During that time, I was having a really deep coaching journey myself, really clearing out the stuff that was getting in my way, and certainly from kind of previous relationships and my marriage and all these beliefs that we all acquire over time. And it was profound. And I just had so many breakthroughs that I just, like, now I'm a different person. I just, sometimes I think, gosh, who was that other person? And I'm just so grateful that I'm now creating a life that is a life that I want, as opposed to a life that I thought I should have. And so I wanted to be able to share this with other people. So I then started training in the modalities that my coach used with me. And then I was trying to work out, well, who do I want to work with? And I thought it was going to be around relationships. I've got a lot to give in that area. And then I heard this study, and I talk about it in the book. Science magazine, a number of years ago, they got a load of men and women in a room together. And they said, okay, we want you to be alone with your thoughts individually in this room for 15 minutes. Alternatively, you can have a small electric shock. Now, the women, 13% of women said, we'll take the shock. Over 2/3 of men said they'd rather have a shock than be alone with their thoughts for only 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it gives me goosebumps now. And I remember being sat listening to this study and just thinking about all the men in my life, my ex-husband, my boyfriend, all of these men that most of my friends are men, most of them are kind of early 50s. All these men in emotional pain that kind of share with me, and I thought, I've got to do something about this. So on the train home from London from this show, I worked out my new coaching niche and the journey, and that was it. And now I'm really on a mission to shine a light on and for men, because I truly believe that the light has been shone on women, and that is important.
For good reason. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm very grateful as a woman for that. However, I think during that process, the light has been taken off men. And the reason I work with men kind of over 40, and most of my clients are in their 40s and 50s predominantly, is, you know, my generation, our generation, guys were brought up to be strong and stoic, to shovel their emotions down, not cry, pull yourself together, lad. All of these phrases that we now kind of, you know, sometimes, you know, laugh at, but men haven't been given the emotional tools to be able to know what to do with their emotions. And I want to help them with that so that they can live their best possible life.
That's so interesting for me as your target client, I guess. But I don't know if you know, I run a gentleman only, it's not networking group, it's more a social group, but we meet once a month. And it started off very much a networking thing, but it's just evolved and established into something a bit more social. And it's really fascinating how much it's changed very recently, almost since lockdown. I hate using the cliche, but it really has, where people are talking about certainly physical health.
Yes.
A touch on mental health. But 10 years ago, you would not have got that at all, ever. Yeah. Not even brought up as a subject. Now it's quite commonplace, and the best example I give is we always have a speaker every month, and I should point out, I used to get a lot of flack for running a men only
I was
thing.
about to ask you.
There are hundreds of ladies groups, women's networking groups, and I get so much shit. Sorry for the swear word, but no, I get so much shit for running a men only networking group. It's probably the last remaining one in Norfolk. But yeah, we have a speaker each month, and it's usually like a big business leader or something like that. But this time it was one of our members who'd been through a cancer scare and got out the other side. And at the end of it, he made everyone sort of pledge to go and get tested for prostate cancer, this was. And we all done that. And there were 3 people who was in that crowd who they caught.
Wow.
And treated and came out the other side.
What an incredible story.
You know, years ago, that would never have, we'd never have talked about that. But the fact we were, and so openly as well, was quite a wow moment.
And kudos to you for setting up the group in that way, that it's a safe space. Much like my dinners, I do believe that there is a need for men to be together without women, and the same for women. But for men to know that they can talk about things without shame, I think is the biggest thing. Which certainly I think is where my dinners come into play, because there is no shame.
Yeah. That's fascinating. So tell me more about the book. How's that going, and how was the publication process? How does that all work these days? I wouldn't know where to start with a book.
Well, I've learnt a lot, and so where to start? So I was going to use a hybrid publisher. So for those people that don't know, there's kind of 3 routes to publishing: a traditional publisher, a hybrid publisher, which is where you pay to have your book published, and they kind of put everything together for you, but they kind of own part of the book, and then self-publishing.
I see. Yeah.
So I was going to use a hybrid publisher, but for various reasons changed my mind right at the very last minute, and decided to go it alone. And predominantly because for me, business is all about relationships, and I really wanted to be able to choose the individual people, so the editor, the typographer, etc., that was going to be involved in my book, which really has been like a baby. So for that reason, went down the self-publishing route. But gosh, like, you don't know what you don't know. And I learned very quickly about publishing, and it's been an amazing process, and I've been able to kind of share some of my knowledge with other people, which is just like really amazing. But actually, I think the publishing part was probably more stressful and challenging than actually writing the book, which I can't believe I'm saying those words. I found, so if anybody is thinking of self-publishing, there is an incredible website called Reedsy, and it's basically like a marketplace for freelancers that have anything to do with publishing. And I just found some amazing people on there. I think their rules to get in are quite tight because the people that worked on my book, like I had a ex-senior editor from Penguin and somebody from Hay House doing the front cover. So my book was in really safe hands. And one of the things that was really important to me was that the book was really readable. I'm really aware, and we had a bit of a conversation about this before we started, that most of my audience want to listen to the book. And I just know that from my clients. So to write the book, firstly about a subject that's probably quite challenging for most people, and secondly, they might not want to read anyway. It's kind of felt like I had two barriers.
I guess the issue is they're not constant normal readers, everyday readers.
Exactly. And it's not a business book. You know, it's different, and it's going to be a bit challenging potentially, and might create some discomfort. So I wanted to make it really relatable and easy to read and simple. And you may have noticed, so I'm very kinesthetic, so I'm very kind of touchy-feely rather than kind of visual. And so for that reason, I have quite big pauses, and I think that works well when you're coaching, right?
It's funny. For every sort of coach or anything mindset, I do notice lots of pauses, and that's a good thing. We should all take time to think about what we're going to say next. But it's something I have noticed specifically for people in your line of work. So.
Yeah, it goes with the territory.
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah,
and I know that I talk very slowly and I have spaces, etc. So I wanted to make sure that came across in the book, because that's important. And I wanted when you read a book, you have a relationship with the author, don't you? And I wanted that to come through. And I have a lot of exercises. Anybody that's ever done any work with me in any kind of realm knows that I try and make things, firstly, really simple, and secondly, really practical. So there is, I would say, enough theory in the book, but not too much. So kind of understanding why, and then let's get to it. Which I also think is probably how most men's brains work also. And so for that reason, it's a bit playful in between some of the exercises that might be a bit heavy potentially. And, and so the typography was really important to me in terms of how that was laid out. So I spent a long time on that, and it's very interesting working with creatives.
I can imagine, yeah. So in terms of the publishing process, do you have to stump up the money up front, or is it someone takes a cut of every sale, or is it?
No, so I own everything because I've self-published. So I own everything. And so, I was just kind of paying as I went for the different parts, which again was very helpful. And
presumably when you've sold 1 million copies, you'll be swanning off into the sunset. But presumably you make money from every sale, do you, of the book?
So I make money from every sale, not a huge amount, I have to say. Much better if people buy it off my website. I make more money than if people buy it on Amazon. However, when I launched on in May, I managed to achieve Amazon #1 bestseller that day.
Wow. And
it was everything I dreamed of, and it all came true, which is why I'm still kind of thinking, wow.
Wow, indeed. And I should say for our listeners, I'll put a link to the book in the description. And that's what to look out for, Unlearning Masculinity. But I look forward to reading that. And I will put a link in the description for it. Moving on then to more the coaching side of things, how long have you been doing that now, and what's the sort of process and procedure in place?
Many years, and really in different guises throughout my career, really. Specifically working with men the last few years, and in terms of kind of the process. So one of the things that I think a lot of people think is that they need to be broken to come and see me, and that's just so not true. And yes, of course, if you're not in a great place, I want to help you with that. But actually, my typical client and favorite type of person to work with is somebody that is feeling like they've got a life that is kind of 70, 80% brilliant, but they know there's more. And it's me helping them achieve that more. And of course, I'm not a business coach or a life coach. My coaching is, so I call myself a therapeutic coach. And I spent a long time deliberating on if that would turn men off or not. But it is kind of, it does what it says on the tin. In terms of the work that I do with clients isn't therapy, but it feels therapeutic because we start a coaching journey by working out everything that's getting in the way. So all of the kind of crap and shit that's getting in the way, and then we get rid of it.
One of the best things I ever learned from a coach was, the circle.
Oh yeah, the wheel of life.
Well, yeah, I guess I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, you can have all these areas in perfect, harmony. They can be 100% on all of those, but if you've just got one bit that's missing, then it just doesn't.
You have a wonky wheel.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that, and that's one of the things that a lot of people miss because they just think, "Oh, I'm fine without that bit of it."
Yeah, and it's actually something I start with all my clients. It's in the book. If people want to see what we're talking about, I've got a free download on my website of the Wheel of Life, because as I always say, it's a well-coined phrase by many people now, where attention goes, energy flows. And sometimes you're focused on one part of your life, aren't you? Maybe business, money, and then you realize that fun or relationships or health is a bit wonky on your wheel. And so we go through different seasons of life, don't we? And it's just working out, okay, well, what's important to me now? And if I'm not feeling great, well, the Wheel of Life actually is a really good visual way of just working out what's going on.
Yeah, it worked for me anyway, that one that I did. I just remember that's the one thing out of all, I've done loads of training and loads of things over the years, but that's the one thing that's always really sort of rung true, and how I can see in necessarily myself but other people when they're missing out on there's you can tell there's something missing, and they think it's not an issue, but I think it's just there's that smooth life, isn't it? And, so in terms of, obviously we know who your target client is.
Yes.
What's the sort of, would they reach out to you? Do you approach them? How do you actually win new clients? Recommendations, I assume, are a good big part of that.
Yeah, most of my clients come to me through recommendation for kind of obvious reasons, really. And it's so much easier than, yes, of course, I'm on social and I do all of the other things that you should do as a business owner. But there's so many touch points, and we're talking about something that is so personal. I do think personal recommendation is just so much easier. One of the things that I have for people is a scorecard, so they can self-diagnose to start with, which feels like a kind of first step, but a gentle first step. And there's just a number of questions around different areas of life, which actually I've based around the Wheel of Life.
Yeah.
And it gives you a score, and then it gives you a kind of PDF with some thoughts and ideas. And I
link to that in the description.
Thank you.
Sounds brilliant. Yeah.
And that's also available on my website, all free, obviously. And I think the more, particularly for men, the more, which was part of the reason of writing the book, is it's like a DIY job, right? And when things possibly feel a bit sensitive to talk about because you've been told all your life not to talk about them, finding as many kind of routes for people to be able to pick my stuff up to kind of learn and understand before they talk to me is something that's really important, which is kind of part of the reason of creating the scorecard.
Fascinating stuff. I do know quite a few people who'll be very interested in what you do. So in terms of you as a business, things going well, presumably, and I certainly heard lots about you since I think it was couple of months ago, Adrian, no, who was it? Told me you would be a great guest.
Mark,
yes, yeah.
The wonderful Mark.
And yeah, I looked you up then, and since then I heard your name lots of times. So yeah, certainly hearing lots of good things about you. In terms of where the business goes, it's just you presumably at the moment, but can it be upscaled? Can it be through maybe virtual reality? What do you call it? The Zoom, Teams, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Can it be done through that sort of?
Yeah, so I do have some clients in the States, so clearly I use Zoom for them.
Yeah.
However, one of them has flown out here to have some in-person sessions with me for kind of the therapeutic part of the work that I do. I choose not to use Zoom wherever possible, partly because of the work that I do, partly because of this whole being kinesthetic and wanting to be in the room and pick up on people's energy, which I find really hard on Zoom. So, and I'm kind of creating more clients in London at the moment, so I'm looking for a space in London if anybody knows of anywhere. I've just joined a club in London to get myself kind of known more there, and to have a base in London.
I don't know if it's of use, but it's if you were to join, that there are like a shared office club almost that you can use, and they've got lots of hubs in every town and city. So I can put you in touch with them if that's of any use, and you can just use their little hub. And it's very inexpensive. But yeah, there's I imagine far more. Not that Norfolk doesn't have them, but wealthy individuals meeting that criteria.
Well, it's a numbers game, isn't it?
Yeah,
Really?
it is.
And I do have a lot of clients in Norfolk. I have a coaching room in the garden, and so I live in North Norfolk. And I did wonder if people would mind coming to kind of North Norfolk, particularly if they're kind of Norwich way. And I think every single person that comes to me says, "Oh God, I love the kind of decompression from office or home life to coming to you, and then the kind of reflection on the way home." So that kind of hour and a quarter actually is just their time. And how often do we get just time for ourselves, particularly if we're running or scaling a business? So and it's in the garden. It's nice. So I don't actually want to scale to have a team. I much prefer having kind of freelancers work for me, doing kind of different things. I've had businesses where I've managed people, and it's just not what I want at this point in my life. But who knows? Who knows where the book?
Well, you can always
me.
outsource the non-important stuff, the admin and the other stuff. Yeah. So, in terms of successes, without obviously naming names, can you give us a sort of story about how you've helped someone and what they've achieved, maybe as a result?
Yeah, and
put you on the spot there, didn't I? But
So do you know, it was really hard writing the book because obviously you want to put case studies in it, and clearly you can't talk about your clients, and some people might know people that come to see me, so I didn't even want it to be that close. So what I did was I created a character called Andrew. And so Andrew features throughout the book, and he kind of personifies a couple of my clients. And you kind of go on Andrew's journey throughout the book. And he's a northern lad who thought that if he...
Now I'm just sitting there thinking, who's over 40? Northern lad.
Yeah, he really personifies clients. So nobody, and I've called him Andrew because of my surname, and his wife is called Claire because that's my middle name. So it really is anonymous.
Okay.
And he's this northern lad that thought that if he got a nice house on an estate and a Cortina, he'd be doing well in life. And then he worked his way up through a kind of food manufacturing business, and suddenly is running a food manufacturing business, and all of the kind of pressure that comes with that, and then exits for more money than he ever thought was possible. And then it's the loneliness, identity issues, lack of purpose that come into play with who am I without my business. And that really is what I talk about a lot in the book, because so many of my clients are entrepreneurs that have, created a business, a really successful business, exited, got a stack of cash, played with their toys, so to speak. And I don't say that in a derogatory way. I love cars. And then they're wondering why they can't fill the hole. And some of the biggest successes I've had is clients that have come to me like that and have said, I just can't fill this hole, whatever I do. And through a number of things that I do with them, therapeutically, and as well as kind of coaching and work around their values, etc., are living very different, fulfilled lives. And it is so rewarding. Danny, I feel so privileged every time I sit in my coaching room with a client, and particularly, who some of them are, like, I just think, wow, like I have such awe for somebody that hasn't been brought up to come and, sit and talk to me about things that probably are quite painful. And they do, and they come back again and again and again, and they play full out.
So in that scenario, say they've just exited and they're sitting on a big pile of cash, what sort of direction would you steer them? Because I've always been against retirement to the point where I'm vocally always say never ever retire. And anyone I hear saying that word, I jump down the throat and say don't ever use that in front of me, because everyone I know who's retired, doesn't matter how much golf they intend to play or motorhomes they buy or apartments abroad, they're no longer with us. And it's just true of every single example I know of people who've told me they're retiring. But I don't know anyone who's exited and not then gone on to start another business or start doing something else, similarly property developing or just something to keep them busy. Very, very few people I know are of that mindset who've actually grown a successful business, exited, and then not done anything else, because I just think they have to do something. But I'm interested to know what way would you steer them? Would you steer them to a more relaxed semi-retirement stage, or would you tell them to start something else? Or
gosh, so much to unpack.
Do you steer them that way, or do you say, no, I'm not going to tell you one way or the other?
Yeah, exactly that. So it's not my life, it's their life. The thing that I want to make sure is that they're not living a life of should or a life of avoidance. I think, and I can think of a couple of clients actually who, once they'd exited their business, found a number of businesses to invest in, or filled their time with kind of other things of that nature. And the question is, well, why isn't it fulfilling? And it's probably not fulfilling because it's all externally verified, as opposed to turning inwards and actually what do you want? And so often we've been brought up with, success is, what you've got, not who you are. Which is what the book's about, redefining success. And that doesn't mean you can't have nice things. I always say, and Porsche takes a bit of a bash with me, and I really don't mean it because I really like Porsches, but I always say, do you need the Porsche or do you want a Porsche? Because if you want a Porsche because you're a petrol head, you love playing with cars when you were young, and now you're in a position where you can buy a Porsche, well then that's incredible. Fill your boots, buy 6. I don't care. But if you need a Porsche because it says something about you or who you are, then I care, because then we need to look at why you need it. Because it's not necessarily healthy for you as an individual. So yeah, so I feel a bit sorry for Porsches really, but yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I'm just thinking about the Porsche because I have a fascination with all things petrol or diesel or cars, boats, everything. And yeah, interesting. I had a conversation this morning with the gentleman I mentioned about, and I might have an unhealthy obsession with being spontaneous, buying shiny things, and and we were discussing the relative merits behind that. Is that a problem or not? I don't think it is. It's just because I like the bright, shiny thing. But it's just impulsive. I always have to justify. I justify every purchase with I'm selling that for almost enough to pay for that, and there's always justification behind it. I suppose
that's really interesting. And
but I forget where I was going with that.
But you see, the reason so many people want the Porsche or the shiny thing is it's around avoidance. And avoidance of something that's getting in the way, and that might potentially be an emotion that you don't want to feel, for example. And I've got a whole chapter about it actually. And and Andrew's at the start of the chapter. Andrew stood in the Porsche garage again, and the chapter's called.
You're not worried Porsche are going to try and sue you after this book, are you?
As I say, I love a Porsche, and. He stood in the garage and he's saying, well, should I buy another Porsche? But it doesn't feel like it felt before. And there's this emptiness, and really all he's trying to do is fill this hole. So actually, let's look at some other ways to fill the hole that might potentially be cheaper and more fulfilling, and then go and buy the Porsche if you still want it, or go and buy another 6. It's really about not avoiding, and yes, of course, I talk about Porsche, but it could be anything else. There are healthy addictions. So some people are addicted to exercise, and they're addicted to exercise, and they're still avoiding the same thing. Or it could be alcohol, porn, sex, drugs, whatever. Some of these are healthier addictions than others.
Yeah, there's worse things to be addicted to, isn't there?
Yes.
So, are there any real world, other than Andrew, examples you can give of people and what they've ended up doing at that point after they've exited? Or I think what I'm looking at is which way should I go? Because I always try and advise people certainly not to retire and certainly to do something else. What do you think they should be doing, and what? Well, again, it's not for your place to say necessarily.
Yeah,
but
what I would ask, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I will. What is the purpose of not retiring?
I truly believe, and I'm no bloody, I'm no mind expert or anything like that. Just from experience, the people that have told me they're retiring, as I said, are no longer with us, and that's happened more times than I can count over the last 10 years. So I'm just warning people off that. And all of those people have said they're going to play loads of golf, get a motorhome, go on loads of holidays. So it doesn't matter. So I'll be fine, because my dad even, retired early, and 6 months later he was riddled with cancer. And I just think there's something in our mind that as soon as we're telling our body that we're now going to retire and take it easy, something triggers, and something health-wise happens, and that's it. The body shuts down, and that's just from personal experience and people I've spoken to and people I've known. So that's my reason not to. So I think we need to be under pressure. We need the phone to ring every day to say, why aren't you doing this thing? Or this fire needs fighting. I think as human beings, we need that reason to get up every morning. We need someone keeping us on our toes. We need someone shouting at us occasionally, because without it, I just think, that's where illness sets in. Again, just from personal experience and observation.
Well, firstly, thank you for sharing that. And So what I hear is that you have a belief that if you retire, you'll die.
Yeah, it sounds rather morbid, but no, yes, yes, in a nutshell.
Yeah, and so
I've got many examples of that. Yeah.
So unconsciously, if you've got that belief, which is then consciously backed up with, real life examples, then it's no surprise that you don't want to retire.
Yeah.
I guess the question is that the only possibility?
Clearly not, but it's just
and that's something I would help a client with in terms of exploring, well, what's behind that, and did that belief exist before your dad retired? Because clearly that sounds like that was an incredibly emotional time. And you see, the thing about retiring is, and you kind of touched on it, it's about purpose, I think. And if your purpose has always been about your business, then it's like, whether you call it purpose maybe, or mission, like what's your mission in life beyond your business? And for some people, they go into mentoring, don't they, after their business, or they set up things like Vistage groups, or and for others they turn to charities or become a NED or whatever it might be. Others might mentor young people. But I think it's really like understanding, well, what do I want to do? Who do I want to kind of help? What's the mission? And I think exploring that then gives you the purpose to get up, that might not be necessarily work, business related.
Yeah, and as I said, I know many people who are doing that, and they're just doing something completely different. Maybe they're buying other businesses, and but having those people shouting at them, I think, is from what I can see, they're loving it. But
so what you're saying is you need all your listeners to ring you up and shout at you, right?
Just don't ever tell me that you're retiring, or you get a mouthful. But no, it's unfortunately from personal experience and just people we've known over the years that, as I said, aren't with us anymore. That's not to say I'm in any way qualified to make that assumption, but I just think there are far better ways of taking a foot off the gas rather than altogether stopping the car, if you like. But yeah, interesting stuff. So any real struggles throughout running this, or obviously guess highlight has got to be the book. Is there any real painful points over the last few years that struggles you've overcome? And
less in the, I get, so two probably. One before I set up this business with my last business, and I think when I wrote the book, because I was so focused on it, when it was launched and I suddenly breathed, I suddenly realised all those things that I hadn't been doing. And that's when it's helpful to have a team. And also I think, the irony is not lost on me what the book is about, because I felt like I needed to read it. The book is about, achieving success, getting there, then what? And it was interesting how I noticed some of those things about writing a book, and and it being very, wanting to be Amazon #1 bestseller, achieving it, now what? And so I've been on an interesting journey since May. Luckily, I'm a coach and I've got the techniques to kind of help myself, and I also have a good network of other people that I draw on for their help. And I think it's really important actually that people realise that even coaches don't have like a perfect life, because there is no such thing as perfect, and we are all human. The thing about coaching, and I say this to all my clients, is what I would hope is that you will be able to bounce back quicker, because you've got tools to be able to do so, because you've spent time healing.
I do sometimes give business coaches mainly, but anyone in a position of being able to offer advice, not a hard time, but I certainly in the business coach environment, I want to know they've been there as well. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it's not quite the same for mindset and anything like that, because it's.
Do you know? I think it's even more important.
Do you think?
I do, and I say this to clients and potential clients. I would not buy a website off somebody that had a shit website.
Very true.
And so the amount of coaches and kind of that I know that have done no coaching on themselves. Well, you can only take your client as far as you're prepared to go yourself. And what if you suddenly get triggered in the middle of a session? Like, for me, I have spent tens of thousands of pounds on coaching and continue to have coaches. I have 2 coaches currently that work in slightly different ways, and I am fully invested in it because I believe in it. And how can I ask my clients for money if I'm not, practicing what I preach? It's like saying I don't believe in it, but I want your money. Like that's not congruent with my values. And also, like, I have this growth mindset. I want to understand myself better. I want to be the best version of myself. I want to show up in the best way I can and get the most out of life.
Without giving away too much of the book or your process, are there any tips or tricks you can give to that target audience? Just some basic one-liners that you could maybe give away, if you like, as an understanding of what you offer.
So the number one thing I would say to anybody is getting comfortable with getting stuff out your head. Now, I know a number of people aren't ready to go and talk to somebody. So this is why I really champion journaling. And I always joke that, journaling is no longer for 13-year-old girls.
I think I've just got to run it. Journal. By that you mean writing a journal
Writing in
every
a diary,
day.
Yeah. But not writing what you did, writing how you feel about stuff. And, maybe you had an argument with your business partner or your wife or your children from your first marriage, or maybe you don't feel enough for whatever reason, and really kind of just getting it down on paper and exploring what's behind some of those things. Really, it doesn't need to look perfect. You're not writing a book, nobody's going to see it. I always recommend writing rather than typing in a phone, but if typing in the phone is going to be the only way you can do it, then do it. But there is quite a lot of science about writing, because your hand can't go as fast as your brain, so it kind of slows you down. And the idea, and what we're trying to get, is disassociation from what's going on in our head, so that we can feel freer. And it's amazing how much space you suddenly get, how much lighter you feel, and then the creative ideas and different solutions to problems that come up. It really is. And certainly with my clients, I get them to journal in between sessions. And I'll be really honest, some people really struggle with it. And it takes them some time to develop a practice. I would. I'd
be like, I've got enough stuff to write. Thank you very much.
And I always I just keep saying, have a go, and play with it. This isn't meant to be something serious. It's meant to be something that's going to be helpful, And because I realised the guys were having a problem when I was asking clients to do it, I've written a guide. It's called The Simple Guide to Journaling for Men Who'd Rather Do Anything Other Than Journal. And it's available free on my website if people want it. There's also an audio version if they'd rather listen to it. And, it's just some thoughts about why journaling is important, how to do it, some real practical stuff, because some people are like, well, how do I journal? Which I thought was a really obvious thing, but it's really not. It's only obvious because I know about it. And apparently it's been quite helpful for a number of people. But that would be one big thing that I would say as a kind of first step.
Once you've written it, is that it? Sort of done and dusted, or do you recommend going back and looking at what you've written occasionally?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I say do what's right for you. Personally, I rarely look back over things I've written. Sometimes I do. And I'll think, oh gosh, that's where I was 3 years ago. Gosh, what growth I've had. And it's it makes you feel good. And other times you suddenly have a lot of compassion for what you were going through at a different point in your life. My journals through COVID and lockdown are really, that's when I was having a really deep coaching journey myself. And I have a lot of compassion for that version of myself. But, burn them if you're worried someone's going to read them. Like, the most important thing is it's just the disconnection with getting the stuff out of your head. Yeah, it's important, particularly if you have issues sleeping as well. And that is another thing that so many of my clients, when they come to me, they're having issues sleeping, and sleep is the bedrock of life, I believe. So that's one of the things another thing that I would help clients with. And there are so many amazing books out there about sleep at the moment. I could recommend lots.
So, as I understand it, to sort of almost summarise, there's kind of three aspects. There's the coaching, there's the hosting, and there's the book. Is there any other plans to do anything else in the future, or do you have any thoughts as to where you might be in 4 or 5 years' time?
Yeah. Well, I love a vision. Chapter 10.
There you go.
Chapter 10 of the book is all about writing a vision. And actually, I get my clients to write a vision in a very different way to what a business coach would do so. And it's a very kind of connected sensory experience. And so my vision very much is I'm on a mission to shine a light on and for men. And I hope that through kind of talks and more profile work, I can kind of do that for men. And my ultimate aim is that I'll be in a position where I can offer so many kind of pro bono places for guys that perhaps wouldn't be able to naturally invest in coaching, so that I can kind of give back to them as well.
And presumably website is the place to go to contact
for everything.
you. And in terms of the hosting, is that sort of an invite only thing, or is that something you can stick your hand in the air and say, I'd like to be a part of?
Yeah, so it's an invite only, but if any of your listeners are interested, then absolutely to kind of reach out to me on LinkedIn, DM me, send me an email. All the information's on my website, cassandraandrews.com. And I'm always interested in getting more men to the dinners. They are quite something.
I can imagine. Yeah, being in charge of a large group of men. I sympathise, because they're like herding sheep most times. But so how can we help you? I mean, obviously we know your target clients, but what do our listeners listen out for in people they may know? Certainly someone exiting a business, I imagine, would be a very good
absolutely. But sometimes it's too soon. Sometimes people want to exit the business, buy the car, have the fun, absolutely,
and then realise there must be more to this.
Exactly. And I've learned that through experience. And so I think clients, so my typical clients have one of three problems. It's or all of them. It's lack of identity through things like selling the business, or perhaps divorce. So their life isn't who they thought they were. Or it's around purpose, which we've kind of discussed at length. Or the third thing is that they feel trapped. Now, that might be in a business in terms of the responsibility of that business. It might be in a relationship. So normally the things that they're saying to listen out for is, I can't fill this hole. I just want to get off the hamster wheel. Or things around responsibility weighing heavily. And the easiest way, if you think there's somebody in your life that could do with some help, is maybe, say you've read a good book lately called Unlearning Masculinity.
Yeah.
It's an easy way, rather than saying, I think you look broken, you better go and talk to Cassandra. And who wants to say that?
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true. But yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, it's great what you're doing, and as I said, it's very rarely spoken about these days.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course I would say that, but no, I just think we are a forgotten category of people at the moment. But it's not to say that everything else is not deserving of it, but like with the wheel of life, you can't forget about the bits that aren't succeeding or whatever. But
no, and we're all human, aren't we? At the end of the day, yeah.
Well, I think we should call it there. But that was absolutely fascinating, and I wish you all the best with that.
Thank you so
I look
much.
forward to reading the book. As I said, I'll put loads of links in the description, and perhaps you can give me some pointers on writing the description. There's so many things I want to get in there, but that's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The Norfolk Business Show with Danny Snelling. Sponsored by MT Comms.
Just a quick word from me. Absolutely thrilled with the response and feedback we've had so far. It really has been so positive. We're going to continue with it. I do just need to ask you all, please, just to take that 1 second to click the subscribe, like, follow button, share them. Just do something for me, because we're never going to be monetized. We're not going to make money from this show, and that's not our intention. We're a local Norfolk show, so we're never going to get those worldwide viewing figures that need to monetize channels. It's not about that. We genuinely are just trying to give back to the business community in Norfolk. So please do that favor for me. It will just increase the visibility of those guests we have on the show, so they get more impact from it. And who knows, if you're a future guest, then you'll get the benefit of that as well. So please do that for me. Obviously, we're sponsoring it from MT Comms. Please do keep us in mind if we can help with anything IT related, Office 365 support, cybersecurity, 365, that sort of thing. We also do telecoms, mobile, CCTV. There's loads of stuff we do. Just reach out to us and ask us if you can help with anything. Thank you, guys.